Going live? Think we're ready live? We're live. We're live. We're live on Instagram. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. What is up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Happy
Monday. Live
Wednesday.
at 5 every Wednesday.
Sorry, Wednesday. So hope everybody's having a wonderful hump day. We're going to. Are we early? A little bit early. We're a minute early. Cheers with a topo. Add this to my trash can full of topos. All right. So we're beginning the discussion today with a topic of, should you hit your fat macros? Is it okay if you go under your fat macros? Is it okay if you go over your fat macros? That's what we're talking about. So do you want to start? All right. I'm going to go ahead. So I believe the question of should you go over or under your fat macros was asked in the context of, if you have fat to lose, should you eat fat macros? In which case, many people say no, because you have fat to lose and you can tap into your stored body fat. And then the other in the spectrum is, if you're not hungry, should you still eat the fat macros? That's pretty much the two common scenarios in which that question gets asked a lot. And on both scenarios, I would say yes. And I would say yes in the context of, if you're tracking macros in the first place, you're probably trying to reach a goal. If you're happy with where you're at, you've reached the goal, you don't need to make any changes, and you're asking of, should I, go against what my natural hunger signals are telling me and eat under or eat over, then that's a different question entirely. If you're tracking macros closely, it's probably because you have a specific goal in mind that you have not yet reached. In which case, I would recommend hitting your macros, whether you're already hungry, already full, trying to lose fat, trying to gain muscle. Hit your macros, and here's why. My macros change on a weekly basis. My clients' macros change on a weekly basis. I cannot make proper adjustments for them if they're not hitting their macros on a consistent basis. If you're at least getting within 5 grams of the goal macros, and the response your body is going to give you is going to be accurately reflected based off of those macros. And of course, there's a lot of other variables at play. Your activity levels, your stress levels, your sleep, all those come into play. But it all averages out to an extent. So if you can hit those macros closely and consistently, there's going to be a lot more of an averaging out effect occur, and you can make adjustments towards your macros based off of that. So if you're hitting your macros and you consistently see that, hey, I'm full before I have these additional 20 grams of fat, then maybe going forward, you can down-regulate or decrease your fat macro goal. But if you have a goal, I would definitely encourage you to hit that consistently so that your body can give you actual feedback. And hitting it consistently takes more than one day. It's going to take some time for you to get feedback. There's a lag effect associated with your body's response to the macros. Does that make sense?
Yes. I also would like to say that there are more calories for every 1 gram of fat than there is protein and carbs. So if you are under, you're like, oh, it's just a few grams of fat, it's a lot more calories than you might think. So I think that hitting those goals, if you have them, if you have the goals of hitting macros, then it's important to get those pretty well on the dot, because it does affect the amount of calories you're taking in. And depending on where you are, if you're in a cut or if you're in a bulking phase or if you're just in a maintenance, you want to keep those consistent. So I wouldn't suggest going crazy over on fat unless you feel like your body really needs it, because you're going to go super, super, super over your calories. If you are under eating on your fat and you're already in a deficit or something like that.
But baby, calories don't count. Couldn't resist.
But if you are already at a deficit and you are under on your fat, then you're going to be even more at a deficit, because your fat has way more calories per gram.
Let's dive into some of the listener and viewer questions.
Hello from Cincinnati.
Kathy, what's up? Hi. Dana says, we just had it as Dana, right? You're my client, so I feel like I should know this. It's Dana. I'm pretty sure she said this is Dana. We Slack chat, so I can't hear the pronunciation. There was a guy on the podcast today, and his name was
That's
Michelle, but I thought it was Michael because of the spelling.
Oh, that's funny.
Shannon, what's
Did you
up?
introduce them as?
No, I verified before I introduced the podcast. What's up?
What do Savages rocking it out in Cleveland, Ohio?
What's up, man? TC, hello all. Hello from Oregon. What do you eat if you aren't hungry? What do you eat if you're not hungry?
I tend to do a shake. And I know it seems like a lot of volume, but it's super easy to get in. A shake or yogurt, and I can usually make it like super fatty. If I just need to get in calories, I can make it super fatty by like adding cream or MCT oil or something like that. Slivers of keto brick on top or something. But yeah, you can make it super fatty so it is more calorically dense too.
Katie, I'm always hungry, so I can't help there. Stacy says, hi, you too. I took your advice and added or make sure I'm getting my fat. Thank you for your input. I'm glad to hear it. Hopefully that's working better for you.
Okay, this is a pretty good question.
Pronounced Dana. Yep. Okay.
Out of carbs, fat, and protein, which one is the most important to hit? I understand it is best to hit all three.
Daryl Osborne with a question. By the way, he wants us to do a push-up challenge.
Oh boy.
It's 20, I think it's 21 days or 22 days of 22 push-ups or something like that. I'm not sure the exact. Go ahead and message us the exact specifics there. But to answer your question, what would you say?
I do think it is important to get in all three. It is really hard to choose. I feel like I would primarily choose fat because you're going to want to make sure that you're getting all the energy source, but I think it's super important, so I'm a team.
All right. I'm going to go with all three.
Oh, okay. If you had to choose one, that's what he's saying. Like, you clearly all three is most optimal.
Well, it kind of depends. Like if not hitting your carb goal means that you go over 200 grams on carbs, that's going to have a pretty big impact.
I'm doing this by me, like by my structure of like how I eat. I know I'm not going to go over on carbs. I know that I always eat so much fat that it's super easy for me to get in fat, but protein is something that I have to make sure that I try to get in because I have a harder time getting in the protein. So if I were supposed to track something, the thing that I'm the least good at getting in is the protein, and I know I get plenty of fat because I love everything fat. So
in that context,
for me, it would be protein.
What's up? Wandering in. My cousins are on here.
So don't eat any extra 2 to 3 bricks a day. #reverse diet.
I can put down some bricks. Hello from Chicago. Howdy from Savage. What's up, Tina?
Hello from California.
How much adjustments to fat protein do you make weekly? This is a good question. It depends, but I keep it pretty small. Usually only 5 grams a week. If there's a whole lot of calories to work with or not a lot of time to work with, I'll sometimes be a little bit more aggressive and do 10 grams. Maybe for a couple weeks, I would do 15 grams, depending on, but typically it's 5 grams.
Wandering in said cute pink shirt, Roberto.
Real men wear pink.
What's funny is he went shopping by himself and came back with this shirt. I was pretty shocked. Robert doesn't wear pink.
You want to know why I got this shirt? Because this was the only shirt that they had that fit.
Really?
Yeah, this was the only one they had that fit.
I didn't hear that story. That's funny.
I'm finding when I'm intermittent fasting, I'm not that hungry. I'm nervous because I have an eating disorder way back when, 10 years. Yeah, so if you're doing a lot of intermittent fasting and you know you're not eating enough total calories throughout the course of a day, then I would put less of a priority on the benefits you get from intermittent fasting and just focus on eating more food. Like, there's definitely benefits from intermittent fasting, but if you're finding that that's causing you to undereat on a total caloric level, then nix the temporary benefits you're getting from the intermittent fasting and focus on getting in enough food, because the adverse effects from undereating, like chronically undereating, are going to be much, much worse on that end of the spectrum than the benefits you would yield or get from the intermittent fasting. Brandon says, receive my keto brick koozie this week. Nice. I'm glad you got it.
I keep hearing about the Ted Naiman approach to having lower energy and get half or more calories from protein. Seems to be the opposite of what you say. Which is it? I'm so confused.
All right. I need to be strategic in answering this question. How can I be strategic in answering this question?
I'm going to say, well, go ahead. I'll let you have a start.
No, go for it. I'll let you start.
I would like to say that everybody's body is so different. And because everybody's body is so different, everyone needs to find their own way of finding a lifestyle that's going to fit them best. Some people tend to say that they feel better on higher protein. I have not personally had a lot of people in my life say that they prefer higher protein. When you do higher protein, you're giving yourself a disadvantage of getting energy from the protein that you're eating. Generally, when you're super high protein, you aren't eating enough fat or carbs to have a high enough energy source to feel really good all the time. So for us, and what has worked for us and for our clients and our lifestyle is the higher fat, anti-inflammatory effects of a true ketogenic diet. And that's kind of what we stick to. And I'm going to let Robert run with the rest of this. But know that you can try out both. And you don't have to feel like you have to do one or the other. Try it out. Feel out what feels best for you. You might feel great. You might feel terrible. But you don't have to be stuck with one thing.
For the record, I like Ted Naiman. I had him on the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And I think he's helped a lot of people. His book, The PE Diet, is really good. Like, I like the book. The illustrations are on point. He made all the illustrations himself. I got a lot of respect for that. When it comes to the actual principle of his dieting approach, he uses like traditional bodybuilders as an example and says, look, this demographic is the most lean, the most cut, the most shredded people out there, and they're doing very high protein, very low fats, and very low carbs. So protein to energy. And that is very true. Like, they get very shredded, they get very lean, they get very cut. I did that. I got very lean, very shredded, very cut as well, following that approach. I did not like it. It's not optimal, in my opinion. I feel like you take a hit from a hormonal standpoint without having as much dietary fat. Your cognitive abilities decline without enough dietary fat. So that's why I left that approach and transitioned into keto and haven't looked back since. So in my personal opinion, and I've tried this out on my clients too. I've had a few clients do well with the significantly higher protein, but most tend to stall out with the incredibly higher protein relative to fat. And then as soon as I start increasing the fat ratio, they start progressing again. So in my experience, it has not been an optimal approach, but try it out and see for yourself.
I do also want to mention, and this is just something that I have noticed as a trend, and I think I've mentioned it on here before, and this is not against anyone who is carnivore or is a higher protein type person, but if you start to look, you might notice a trend of those being the people that tend to want to experiment with the carb ups. And I truly believe that that is because they may be lacking in some of their energy source, and they might feel better after having that carb up because they're naturally lacking an easy energy source such as fat or carbohydrate. So I don't think it's like the most optimal option, and they end up using carb ups as their way of healing their hormones after they do some damage with the high protein options. And that's not everyone. Not everyone is that way, but those are some of the trends that I'm beginning to see more and more often as people start to do long-term high protein or carnivore lifestyles. You'll notice that they start to do carb ups and things like that.
All right, let me catch up on the questions over here. What would you recommend for a fat to protein ratio when in a caloric surplus to gain lean muscle mass? As long as you're getting enough protein to be like if you want to play it safe and you're in a surplus and you're okay putting on a little bit of body fat because you're going to have to anyways, what I would do is I would make sure you've got a good solid gram of protein to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of lean mass, and cover your bases there, and then increase dietary fat to a ratio that you feel and perform well at and ensures you're at a surplus. James says, after cut, after reverse, how far do you like to push a caloric threshold? So there is definitely a point of diminishing returns. I function pretty good, and I've got a pretty broad window. Like I can feel pretty good between 3,000 calories and like 4,500 calories. Like anywhere in that window, I feel pretty good. Once I get above 4,500 calories, I don't feel good at all. Like it's just too much food. I feel bloated. I feel like I've got indigestion. I don't feel sharp. So most people probably aren't going to have that broad of a window, and that's simply because they haven't been training as long as me, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of variables at play, and some people have a broader window than me. But there is definitely a point of diminishing returns with the caloric surplus.
22, this is for the push-ups. 22 a day for 22 days. Nominate someone else each day. This is to bring awareness to the 22 vets who kill themselves daily.
I'll do some push-ups. You can do some push-ups?
I'll do some push-ups. I'm really bad at push-ups.
We'll do 22 push-ups every day for 22 days. I ain't scared.
Proud cousin moment right now.
Proud cousin moment. When you say you adjust by 5 grams, does that mean up the protein and slowly dropping fat? Yeah, it depends what phase I'm in. But when I'm adjusting by 5 grams, sometimes I'm only adjusting protein, sometimes I'm only adjusting fat, sometimes I'm moving both in the same direction simultaneously, sometimes I'm moving them in opposite direction. But usually it's increments of 5 grams. Lewis says, I'm going away for a week at 600 calorie deficit now. Should I go up to maintenance while I'm gone and plan accordingly when I come back? I know I may gain a little while I'm gone, and it's okay. I need to know a lot more as far as like what the overarching goal is. Like if you don't have anything in particular trying to cut down for, if you're just trying to lose a little bit of weight and you're going to enjoy your trip away for a week, if you're at more of a maintenance, then yeah, do that for sure.
Sometimes at a certain point, you have to decide what's more going to be worth it. The time with family or friends or whatever, and being able to enjoy and eat all that food. Or if your goals at that time are really important, like if you have an end date, like such as like a competition or something like that. But if you are just going to enjoy your time at a certain point, you also just have to live your life and enjoy it too. We are generally always tracking and things like that, but that's just become our norm. But if it's not your norm and it's going to be stressful for you in a time that you need to be relaxed or enjoying your family, then do that.
Can't drop my glucose on high protein, like 170, 200. Yeah, a lot of people,
it is
like,
very common.
They have high protein. They're super high blood glucose. So keep an eye on that and kind of use that as a marker.
I have a question.
That's for the morning fasting.
Hey guys, working through a mental block at the moment. Recently lost 50 pounds and am now in a bulking phase. What would your advice be for not packing on too much body fat while in a caloric surplus? Oh, they also said they are lifting 4 times a week and running twice.
Okay, so recognize that if you're in a bulking phase, in a building phase, you're going to put on a little bit of body fat weight, and that's okay. There is a difference between putting on a little bit and putting on too much. So in order to like justify that slight gain and be okay with it, like from a psychological standpoint, what I like to say is track all of your metrics, track your body fat, track your weight, track your measurements, track your strength stats. If your strength stats are continually improving, consistently month after month, and your body fat is not really bumping up that much, or if it is, maybe it's just slight, but it's not so much that it does not warrant the benefit you're seeing in the strength gains, then keep doing what you're doing. If you notice a point in which you're not really seeing any increase in strength, but you're seeing a pretty significant increase in body fat, then you can scale it back a little bit from that point. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got a question about miracle noodles from Jim. In your experience with consuming miracle noodles or rice, did you notice any stall or sustained water retention? Yeah, you can definitely retain some fluids. It's not really going to cause a stall per se, in the fact that, let me back up here a little bit. Depends how much you're eating. Like I was going through about 4 pounds a day, and that's not really the best thing to break a stall. And that will cause a lot of water retention. But if you're having a little bit of miracle noodles or rice from time to time, there's not really any caloric load there. So it shouldn't really cause a massive plateau.
I think we both have retained extra water when we have eaten those, though.
Yeah.
I feel
lose weight. Yeah. Already down 90 pounds. So yeah, I don't know. You said you were at a 600 calorie deficit, but I don't know what that total caloric intake is. If it's super, super low, then it may benefit you from having a period out of maintenance.
I feel anxious when I eat fat from meat versus when I eat plant fat. Is that normal? I have personally never heard that.
Hold on one second. I just brushed over the fact that this guy is down 90 pounds, and I see a bunch of congrats later.
I know.
In the comment
I said
section.
wow, and you just like kept going.
So was reading too fast there. That's awesome, man. Congrats. That's super cool. All right, now what is this question?
It's pretty amazing. It's fine. You were just gonna brush past it.
No, that is amazing. I feel anxious when I eat
fat from meat versus when I eat plant fats. Is that normal? And I said I have never heard that before.
I've never heard that either. Anxious from animal fat, more so.
Yeah, is it like
the meat sweats?
Could be meat sweats.
Meat sweats.
But what do you mean anxious? I know a lot of people have, like they get stressed or something like that and say that maybe it's anxiety or something like that. But what do you mean like anxious? Do you feel like jittery after a meal, or do you go weeks at a time with just eating meat or just eating meat-based fats versus then you have weeks where you just have the plant-based fats? Also, like certain times of the day, are you eating those things? Have you like really tested that theory out with just making sure to separate those several days at a time? I would be curious about that. I've never heard that before, but it's not saying that it isn't a true thing for you. I just had never heard that before.
Yeah, me either. We got some congrats. Way to go. He's done it all keto. It's awesome.
Got some bricks. Love the new koozies. Koozie.
Have trouble digesting meat and can only eat so much fish. It's not my favorite. Any suggestions?
Having trouble digesting.
What about dairy?
meat.
Does dairy give you any issue? If dairy doesn't give you any issue, I would definitely use some dairy to get the protein up.
Also, I have a question. I used to have a really hard time getting in meat because of all my stomach stuff. And I used to do like not only ground meat, but like chop up the ground meat so that it's pretty well broken down. And when you chew it, you're just breaking it down even more. But I do a lot of shakes and things like that. I do like a protein shake, and I'll add collagen, I'll add fats and things like that to really help get the protein in. Of course, you want to try to get in meat if it's possible. I also don't eat fish. I hate fish with a passion.
I cooked some fish the other day she liked.
It was not that bad, actually. It was pretty good. But I don't really generally like seafood, but I noticed that if I do like some sort of ground up meat, I do pretty well with it, especially like a lighter meat. And I hate to say that because they're not as nutrient dense, but a lot of times if you get like ground turkey, it's almost like a paste, and then you start to cook it and you just chop it up really, really finely as you're cooking it. And it makes it so much easier to digest. And also eating lots of eggs is really helpful.
Yeah, eggs is good.
And yogurt. Did you say yogurt?
Dairy, so
yeah, dairy, but yogurt. And you can also add like flavored collagens and things like that too. Sorry, I just went on a rampage.
Rampage.
Kayla jumped on here, and I was just talking about you today.
What's up, Kayla?
We miss you.
Thanks. I think high fat is going to be the trick. I agree. What is your go-to food to add dietary fat to your diet to allow 5 gram increments? Well, a whole egg has got 5 grams of protein in it, or 6 grams of protein, 5 grams of fat. So that's a pretty good little way to manipulate. Trying to put on weight and not sure whether to add fat or protein when increasing each week. If you're trying to put on weight, are you taking in enough total protein currently? If so, then you can just focus on adding the fat, or you can add both and just see how your body responds.
Mm-hmm. How long do you recommend spending time in a reverse diet or caloric surplus phase versus a cutting phase? This is for a no competitor interested in fitness and health.
So a good rule of thumb is to spend, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you spend 3 months in a cut, maybe spend 9 months in a maintenance or surplus. Some people spend 20 years in a caloric deficit, so you don't necessarily want to spend 60 years in a maintenance or surplus, because that would just be very difficult. But you get the point. Like, you kind of want to have a 3-to-1 ratio. I would definitely, if you're doing like a strategic cut and have a defined, number of months to cut, then I would definitely try and spend more time in a maintenance or surplus than you're spending in a cut.
Animal fats affect my energy. I don't flow at all. Lamb, pork, etc.
Flow, like energy flow?
Maybe. I'm sensitive to how every food affects me.
Are you fully adapted? Because if you're not fully adapted,
I'm wondering,
you take a bunch of
they said that they're
fats.
sensitive to how every food affects them. So I wonder if they just have a lot of food sensitivities.
Yeah.
I feel much more aggressive in inability to smile as easily. It's strange. Huh.
Yeah, I would do
That
like a
is
sensitivity test. And see.
Interesting. Yeah. Have you
You've done one of those, right?
Yeah, I have done the food sensitivity tests, and they're pretty insightful. There was a lot of the things that you crave are actually the things that you're sensitive to, and a lot of the things that you already thought you were sensitive to is confirmed. It's very interesting, actually.
What are the meat sweats?
Oh.
How would you technically define the meat sweats? I don't know how I would technically define them, but you get like
meat.
Hot and flushed after eating a bunch of meat, especially like certain types of meat. And I feel like it's amplified if that meat has been heavily seasoned. I don't know if it's because of the meat or because of the seasoning or just simply a combination of both. But a lot of people will experience it with like brisket. If you eat a whole bunch of fatty beef brisket, and that's oftentimes the case.
How important is the omega-3 to 6 ratio? What optimal should I avoid? What is optimal? Should I avoid bacon fat if I need to add a little more fat?
No, you don't have to avoid bacon fats. As far as you do want to make sure you have a good ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Oftentimes it's considered a 1-to-1 ratio is pretty good. There's a lot of, omega-6 that's not good, like heavily processed vegetable oils, canola oils, peanut oil, stuff like that. I would not recommend. But like the omega-6 and 3 that you're getting in a quality fish oil, and you want to make sure it's EPA and DHA and not I'm drawing a blank. I think it's ADA, because that requires a next level conversion process and is not nearly as bioavailable. So try and get EPA and DHA with a good even ratio of 3 to 6.
We do like to try to change up our fat sources. So like avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, bacon fat, something from the, like 80-20 ground beef, things like that. Trying to change up your fat sources is going to be a really great option for a lot of people to get those different omega-6s and to just change up the types of fats that you're getting.
Wendy says, I have adrenal fatigue, 51 post-menopause. Should I do higher fat or higher protein? I do not work out, only 10,000 steps a day. I eat meat, heavy keto, but not losing weight. So if I don't know where you've been at, like your whole dieting, journey. So I don't know if you've been like chronically under eating or what, but as you get older, you definitely want to make sure that you're taking in adequate protein. You don't want to be under consuming protein. So I would definitely do like a 1 gram protein per pound lean mass, and then see where you're at on a calorie standpoint when your fat is also up high. But there's a lot I could dive into in this question, but I would need to know like your history with regard to your calories, your training, your lifestyle, your metabolism, because if you've been under eating for far too long and you're not eating enough now, it's going to be hard to train your body to lose fat if it's wanting to just harbor anything you do eat and turn it into stored fat as a protective mechanism. So I would make sure that you've got a solid period of eating at a maintenance or surplus before you do anything crazy.
Again, you do need a proper amount of protein, but also fat does really help a lot with helping to regulate some hormones, and you're really in that fight or flight state right now with your adrenal fatigue. And so the best thing that you could do is make sure that you're eating plenty of food, get in plenty of protein, but also a very sufficient amount of fat. And you're welcome. I mean, you're welcome. Of course, you're welcome to play around with those different things. Make sure that you, like Robert said, 1 gram for every 1 pound of lean body mass. That's a really great place to start. That's not where you specifically need to end. But on top of that, make sure that you're having enough fat so that your calories are high enough so that you're kind of getting your body out of this fight or flight mode with the adrenal fatigue.
Lisa says, when feeling tired, what do you eat for energy? My dumb brain is trying to talk me into eating carbs. I refuse to give in to carbs. Don't give in to carbs. You don't need the carbs for energy. Mm-hmm. Again, make sure you're taking in enough fat. From a mental energy standpoint, if my protein is very, very high relative to my fat's very low, I just don't have near the mental clarity and cognitive function. So from a mental standpoint, I respond best when my fat ratio is about 77% of my calories or more. That's when my mental state really picks up and starts humming.
Also, have you tried fasting? I don't know if that where you're at with things, but a lot of times when I do like intermittent fasting, I find that I actually have more energy throughout the day, and then in the evening, I can have my dinner. Battery exhausted.
Oh no! How do we change that?
Can they hear us still?
Yeah, I think they can hear us. We may have to use the. There we go.
Okay. So, where was I at?
I don't remember.
Oh yeah, if you are fasting, then you generally are actually just not feeling as tired, as odd as that sounds. And then I have my meal later in the day, and then I'm able to go to bed and rest. Sometimes I notice that I'm actually more tired after a meal. So you could play around with that idea as well, or maybe having like a fatty coffee or a tea or something like that earlier in the day, pushing off your having an equal protein to fat ratio meal later in the afternoon.
We're getting a bunch of questions. We're behind. Hi everybody from Brandon. What's up, Brandon? TC says lactose intolerant is the only meat I can eat is hamburger and turkey, finely ground. Is there a good plant-based protein shake?
I honestly haven't found one that I really enjoy in a shake.
Yeah, there's not. I don't really know of any shakes.
Do you not do well with like a really high-end whey protein or a collagen protein? That is what I would highly recommend if you can handle it. I do a lot of like collagen shakes.
Finally caught alive. Well, we're glad to have you.
Maybe I'm not fat adapted yet. That may have a difference on my body's reaction. Appreciate the insight. Well, you're welcome. And yeah, if you haven't been doing keto for very long, or maybe, okay. We're having issues with our technology today, apparently.
Yep.
But if you haven't been keto for very long, or maybe your fat ratio hasn't been that high for very long, that could definitely be a thing for sure. Tips for training abs. I do ab work, but they are coming out bulky and puffed out instead of conclaves, shredded look. Am I training them wrong?
I like to do hanging leg raises because it causes you to stretch the muscle tissue and you get a much larger range of contraction in the abs. So I would recommend doing something like that instead of just like a crunch or something that's a very short range of motion plane of movement. But
I don't know what maybe bulky means, because like if you're working your abs a lot, you're going to be building muscle. And when you build muscle, you're building size. So no matter what way you're doing those core exercises, you might just be adding muscle, which is what you're seeing as like the bulky maybe. And the shredded look happens when you're super low body fat.
Yeah.
So like Robert has abs right now, but his midsection is really thick because he has some body fat. He has muscle. Shut up. He has muscle, he has all of those things, but when he's leaned down for a competition, he looks shredded and ripped and things like that. So the more you work a muscle, the larger it's actually going to get. And I know that sounds silly to say, but you're building up that area. So you should expect it to get larger and thicker.
Currently 5'4", 24 years old, 86 pounds, and getting about 130 grams of protein per day. 86 pounds, that's tiny. 130 grams of protein, that's a pretty good solid protein intake if you're only weighing 86 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
What about your total calories? Like, are you doing a pretty high fat ratio or a lower fat ratio? But I think you could probably afford a higher fat ratio pretty well. Though I've noticed that if you're really on the lighter end of the spectrum, you can tolerate a lot more calories without near the adverse effects. So I was talking earlier, I don't know if you're on the live earlier, about having a broad, window for which your body experiences very little to no adverse effects from being in a surplus. You probably have a pretty broad window. Which food sensitivity test do you recommend?
I don't have a recommendation of one, actually. I ended up working with someone who is providing me the test. And I don't actually know the name of the test, but I would highly recommend that you don't just do a food sensitivity test on your own, that you actually do it with a provider or someone who can do a online consultation or something like that, because they can offer a lot of insightful options and ways to diet so that you can remove some of the things that are in your normal diet, so that you can actually potentially bring those things back into your life. And so I would recommend. What are you smirking about over here?
We're not going to keep up. What do they got? Questions rolling in and we're running behind.
We'll get to them. We're already past the time we normally would jump off.
Yeah.
So I don't have a specific brand, but I think that they're pretty much all pretty well the same.
Here we go. Brandon says, I am deep into a cut and notice my patience is very short and my temper is easily flared. Any tips on how to keep your cool mentally while in a caloric deficit? Meditation, book recommendations, etc. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I literally have that book on whenever I am in a deep deficit and mad at everything. How did you get into coaching, online or in person?
Goodness.
Online, for sure.
In person.
What?
How did I get into coaching? I started training people at the gym.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I started online.
Crazy.
I worked at a gym, though.
What are your favorite supplements on the keto diet? Meat.
Vitamin D3, creatine, and I like nootropics, but you don't have to have any of those things.
You don't have to have any of them, but we do always take a vitamin D. When is Crystal starting a Lady Savage podcast? Well, I won't lead into anything, but it won't be a Lady Savage podcast, but we might have something similar coming your direction.
In a theater near you.
Yeah.
James says, have you ever had a fat threshold 90% or higher? There is a diminishing returns with fat as well, but like if I'm taking in adequate protein and I'm at a 90% fat ratio, that would be a massive amount of calories for me.
And not enough protein, probably.
Yeah.
They do that for therapeutic reasons. A lot of people who are like cancer, epilepsy, things like that. And it can be extremely beneficial, but I think that they generally have a practitioner, a physician, someone leading them through that.
Jeff says, should I lower my fat some if I'm still trying to lose weight? I have been stalled for months. So Jeff, you probably have not been on the live the full time, but we dove deep into that question earlier in this video. So when this gets published, I would just watch the first half. That should answer your question there.
You're going to get excited about this one. Robert, is it bow season up there yet? And if so, when should I plan to come up? Free range, grass-fed shopping.
I'm going to go bow hunting this weekend, y'all. Bow season opened up last Saturday, and I'm going to go hunting this weekend. I'm taking my baby. That's you.
That's me. I'm the one.
Tina says, I've been keto for almost 2 years, and while blood glucose has improved, I haven't lost any weight. I watched your videos about reverse dieting, and I'm thinking I need to try it. Work out 5 times a week. Yeah, if you've been under eating, then I would definitely recommend a reverse diet period.
Is collagen counted toward macro counts?
Yes.
100%. Anything that goes into your mouth that has calories, that has macros, should be counted. We don't do the net carb thing. We do all the things. If you eat it, it counts.
What is the age of you both, if you don't mind?
The age of you both.
What's the guess? You gotta guess. We'll tell you, but you gotta guess.
That's so stupid. If with that kind of answer, you're gonna guess he's 12.
That's awful. I turn.
He's turning 29 next month, October 30th. Put it in your calendar. It's a Friday. Yeah, I'll make a post about it.
I'm getting old.
I'm 28.
All right. 29. The fatty coffee sounds yum. I think I'll try that. I do fast 20 to 4 5 days a week. 20 to 4 5 days a week. My low energy was from lack of sleep, but it was causing a major carb craving. I would try the fatty coffee next time. Yeah, I would definitely try that.
Also, I don't know if you know this, but lack of sleep does cause food cravings and tends to cause irregular eating tendencies. So definitely steer clear of the carbs and the things that you're craving, unless that you know it is actually nutrient dense and something that you really want to eat.
Hi, I'm about 120 grams fat, 130 grams protein, about 1650 calories per day. Yeah, so I would try to bump that up even more, like try and increase fat. Since you got more protein than fat, try and increase your fats because you're taking in adequate protein for your total body weight. So I would just try and increase your dietary fat and see if you see. I think the goal was it building muscle, or am I getting those confused? If it's building muscle, I would try and just increasing fat. I don't know if that was the goal though or not. I don't remember.
Okay, it might be muscle then. I have a very short waist, so it is very compact. I guess I was hoping to get a smaller, thinner waist, not thicker. If you do, if you are doing also compound lifts and things like that, you're going to be building a lot to your core. However, people do not like to hear this answer, but this is the one that I like to give, is that if you are building your legs, if you are building your glutes, if you're building your lats and your shoulders, you are going to get a better
shape.
It's not even a better shape. Your waist is smaller as everything else is built wider and broader, and you're going to give the illusion of a smaller waist. And people really don't like that answer because you have to build more, but a lot of people do exactly that. They'll try to work on their core or their abs. Why are you smirking at me?
I'm going to make a joke about your optical illusion.
I'm sorry, explain it to the people.
No.
Does everyone want to know how big of a jerk Robert is right now?
I'm not a jerk. I just love you so much. I pick on you. Vintage girls, hello fam. What's up, vintage girls? How do I find my baseline calorie intake per day so I know how to go into a calorie deficit? That's a really good question. I think if you don't mind me asking, I would like to make this the question for next week because this is a really good question. They're all good questions, but I can dive deep into this one. So next, is that cool? You?
Yeah.
How to find baseline calories next week?
Yeah, I have another live in about 3 minutes, so maybe let's answer a couple more questions. We'll use that question for next week, and then we will hit it.
All right, this is the last question we're going to answer on here. It was just for putting on weight in general. I have osteopenia, and like you said, I'm tiny. So yeah, I would definitely increase the fat. Leave protein constant for a little bit. Bump the fat up by like 5-10 grams a week, and then see how that affects you. All right, what you got?
Is 100 grams of protein too low? 4 weeks out, 170 pounds, 5'9", 14% body fat, 1,750 calories per day.
100 grams is low for your stats. However, you said 4 weeks out, so you're doing it.
Assuming this is a male.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing it for a competition prep, and this is for a finite period of time. In which case, that is fine. You wouldn't want to do 100 grams a day, forever. But for a finite period of time in the context of a prep, yeah, that's fine.
So interesting to listen and learn from everyone's questions. Well, I'm so glad it is interesting to you.
I love everybody's questions.
This is the last question of the day. How did you decide to use whey over casein in the bricks? And thank you.
You can answer this?
No, I'll let you answer it.
All right. So, we looked at, I'm super picky with the ingredients on the bricks. That's why they're expensive, because the ingredients are incredibly expensive. We didn't use an animal-based protein for very, very long because honestly, all the vegetable-based proteins that we used were superior to the animal-based proteins. And a lot of people have a problem with animal-based proteins. The reason we went with the whey instead of the casein is that from a bioavailability and absorption standpoint, the whey is superior from a performance indicator with regard to absorption and bioavailability. Casein does have its benefits. It digests a little bit more slowly, et cetera, et cetera. But the way the bricks are made, it's a ton of fat. So the brick itself is going to digest and absorb slowly. So I wasn't really worried about also factoring in a casein from the purpose of slower absorption anyways, because the cacao butter and all the other fats in the bricks are going to help slow the absorption of the whey protein in the bricks. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that regard. So that's why we went with the whey instead of a casein. Now, if I find a really good high quality casein, I'm totally down for making a casein based brick as well.
Over here, they say they most definitely are not expensive for the quality. Thank you. That really means a lot to us.
You know, I don't want to plug the bricks too much here, but I will say this. The bricks, like when you compare any other product on the shelf, a bar in a bar form, the bricks are more expensive. I mean, a single brick is $12 a brick, and most bars are like $250, $350, somewhere in that ballpark. Most bars are like 200 calories. The brick's 1,000 calories. Even if you bought a $12 brick as a single, instead of getting the discounted price buying in bulk, even if you got the $12 brick instead of like a $6 brick, if you break that down calorie for calorie, you're still getting more bang for your buck with a $12 brick. So do the math there on any bars that you find in the store. And if it even comes close, I can guarantee, if it comes close from a price standpoint, I guarantee if you flip the label over and look at the ingredients, there's no comparison. Yeah. So I'm proud of the bricks.
We are very proud of it. It seems like funny to talk about it and be like, da-da-da-da-da, but we've done what we've done for a specific reason, and we are very proud of what we've built, and that we can provide a product that we can just really feel good about. Yeah, feel good about giving to people and know that it's not going to do anything to their insulin. It's not going to, it's just a really good quality, beneficial product. So
100%.
Anyways, I got to go to another live.
Love y'all. Take care. Toodaloo. Adios. See you next week.